So here she is, she's firing up. And let's find where that stylus went, because we're going to need that, because this is a touchscreen. And with all Bernina touchscreens, you need to make sure that you have the right stylus. Hello. All right. Now, if you see on this screen, it looks like it's a little bit blurry. It's because there is a protective cover on here. And we just have to remove that. And it'll be much clearer. I've been caught before with those little things. So this one has a protective screen. So we're going to be using the stylus, because the stylus allows us only to touch where we need to touch for the functions of the machine. And that's particular with almost all of Bernina's touchscreens. Some of them need a stylus like this, and some of them need the soft stylus. It just depends on the model. But this one, we've got this particular one, so that's the one we're going to go with. All right, so hello. This is the beautiful color touchscreen, and let's see if I can get you a little bit closer to the action here. Let's drop that camera a little bit. Okay, so here we have LEDs right over the sew zone, and here we have the color touchscreen. We have all of the thread paths here, and we have them all color coded depending on what we are doing with the needles. So these are your overlock side, this is your cover stitch side. So you'll see here on the front, we've got left needle, right needle. They're etched into the front. You might not be able to see that. And this is left cover, center cover, right cover. So there's two positions where the cover stitch needles can go in. Now, with the beauty of this machine is because of the help that's on board. Now, we can go home and you have a choice whether you want to be guided and helped by the machine, or whether once you get used to that, you can go into expert mode where you don't need as much help, but the machine's going to set up for you. We also have our settings, we have our manual on board, and we have our sewing creative consultant on board, and we have our eco mode, which is similar features brought in from our train of Bernina machines, right through from the 4 series right through to the 8s. So here we have this expert and guided mode. Then I'm going to show you first though the help that's on board, and this is really important because these all are help elements about how to use the machine, how to thread the machine, all of the different things that relate to using the L890. So they've already been programmed in there, so it's less time you have to go back and find a manual and go through the manual. So it's all here in front of you on the screen, ready to go. So if you're looking and you're not quite sure about whether how to thread it or those kinds of things, you'll see that there are little menu items in there. Now, for those of you who are not quite sure about whether this machine, how it works and all those kinds of things, there is a simulator that you can actually download onto your computer to have a look at the functions of the screen, which is really great. So if you're thinking about one, then there's a simulator that you can download and put on your computer, your Windows computer, and then you can be able to simulate what I'm doing here is touching the screen. Okay, so that'll be an interesting one if you'd like to have a look. And I'm going to put a link at the end of the video in the notes that you can go and download that. So as you can see, there's lots of fun things here and to do with selecting the thread preparation, all those kinds of things. So there's lots of help there. We're going to go into the creative consultant now, because like it is in the sewing machine, we have it here in the Overlocker. So if you're going to be using fabrics that you're not quite sure about, this can help you, because it's basically going to set up and guide you with what stitch to use, how to set the machine up, the tensions and the stitch length and all that kind of stuff is automatic. Okay, so let's have a look. If we were going to go and use some stretch fabric and we wanted to do this particular seam, or we want to do an overcast, all those kinds of things, we want to do a hem or whatever, select, and it'll tell us what you've got to do. And it's a 2 thread chain stitch, and then we're going to go yes, and then it's going to tell us, okay, this is what we need to do, this is what we need, this is what the stitch cutting width needs to be, that's our presser foot pressure, and you need to do the right cover needle, and that's it, set up. That's pretty cool. If I don't want that one, I can come back and if I want to do the overcast, and it's telling me what needle and what size needle, it's changing stuff in the machine. You can hear it change inside. And it's really interesting because this one, it says that my stitch width should be 6, and then but presser foot pressure has been adjusted. It should come down to 2, and then everything's there is set up, and you go, okay, so this is right, this is right, and then okay, that's what we need to do. So there's no settings here that I have to change. It's changed everything for me on that tension. All I have to do is make sure is that I've set it up the correct way, which is really cool. So what I want to do now is have this basic 4 thread overlock like you would normally test an overlocker with. All right, no cover stitch at this point, just the overlock. So I'm going to go ahead and get some thread. We're going to come back and we're going to thread the machine and get started with the first little sewing trial of this Bernina L890. Now the fun part is we've turned it on and we've had a look at the screen. Just quickly, we're into the home screen, which is guided or expert mode. But we're not going to worry about any of the stitches at the moment. We're just going to have a look at how it threads, okay, with this new threading system. So I've got new threads on here, and I've got a blue one over here just for the chain looper. So we're not going to do that one at all. We're just going to be doing a 4 thread overlock, and we can show you how it all threads. Okay, so first thing, we're going to be using our color coding for all of our threads. So you can see we've got the color codes up here. So the first one we're going to be doing is the lower looper, and these are new threads, so I'm just going to make sure that I can bring that one up. So we're going to do the red one first. So we're going to loop it over there, come into the back of that thread guide and make sure it's clicked in there, because that's going to guide this through the tensions. Now, if you sit at the machine, you can just see these little tension discs in there, and they're all open at the moment. So we've got our foot up, so that's how we would normally thread, with the foot up, and that way the tension units are open. So we're going to make sure. Sometimes we have issues with how the thread looks and how it feeds, and it's really important to make sure that these guides are clicked in, because if it's not, the threads are just not going to go in the right spot, and it's not going to go through those tension units very well at all. So you have to re-thread. So here we go. So we're going to be doing the lower looper. So we've got to open our 2 covers up, and what we've got to do is turn this lever here to close, and it will close up these pipes. Now, if your needles are in a different position, or if you've turned the hand wheel at any point, if you turn this across and the pipes don't click, you've just got to turn the hand wheel towards you till they click into place. Okay, so we're about to go through and do the looper threading. Now, one thing I just learned about the machine was, if you have it in home, in this mode, it won't thread. Okay, so if I go to use the motor to thread it, it does not want to work. So I'm just going to put it into guided mode, and I'm just going to put this lower looper thread just above the threading port. Oops, missed it. If I put my hands across, you can't see, so I'm just a little bit awkward at the moment, so that you can see how this works. Okay, now this will be a lot easier for you because you'll be right in front and you won't have a camera watching you. So that's just pushed it through to this point. Now I'm going to do that once more, just because you might want to see that a little bit better. And if you need to, sometimes the thread sticks to your fingers. So give yourself a little bit of thread and use your tweezers just to have it open near that point. And there it goes, whooshoo, straight through. So that's great, that's the lower looper. Now we're going to use the blue port, which is above this thread here, and this is going to do our upper looper. So for those who not quite understand what the lower looper and upper looper. This guy here is the lower looper. He sits below the stitch plate. He does the thread that's along the bottom. This guy is the upper looper. He comes up over the top. That's why they have their names like that. So there's upper looper and lower. So we're going to put our thread for the blue thread path for the upper looper is going up here first, into the thread guide, making sure it clicks in nice and cleanly. Then it's not going to come out, it's going to come down, and we're going to do the same thing with holding this thread just above the port. Okay, and there it goes, it's come out here super fast. Now the good thing is this particular foot comes out, pushes out on the side, and so what happens is you can pop that thread underneath the needle, underneath the foot, and the same with this guy, goes between under there and away, so that you're not having to get your fingers stuck in there. So that's really a cool feature. So now these loopers are done, we bring our pipes out and it comes to O here. Close that up, and the bottom loopers are done. Now we're just going to do the 2 needle threads. So we're going to do the green one first, which is our right hand side needle. So just making sure I've got sound. All right, so that's our green. We've got green here on the top of this guide. So we're going to click it in there so it's nice and firm, straight through the tension. So we come down and it comes across here, and there's 3 little grooves. One has got a green marker on it. So we're going to go there, going to go up and over like we do with the sewing machine, in here and off to the right above the needle. Now I'm going to bring the camera a little bit closer, so bear with me a second. Just going to lower it down and see if I can bring you across to me a little bit closer. Okay, so hopefully I'm not in your line of sight there. Okay, so here we have our right needle, and I'm going to need the needle threader. So it sits in the accessory tray, and there's no needle threader built into this machine because of the way the cover works. So you have one of these needle threaders in there, and they work on the principle that you bring your, sort of hold it, and you've got this little arrow at the top and at the bottom. I like to use it at the top. So bring your thread across the front of the needle threader, going through horizontally, and then run your needle threader down until it gets through the hole. I'll try that again. So run it down, a little bit of pressure. There's a little loop at the back. You've got a little hook on the end of the needle threader, and you can usually grab it with that and pull it through. All right, so that's the right needle, so the green one. Now we're going to do the left needle, which is yellow marked. So then we're going to come in, making sure that clicks in, comes across. We've got a little marker here with the yellow band on it. We're going to go up and over and come down, and we're going to go into the right side of that. Now, there's lots of different elements here, but I'm going to do through this particular one. Just going to try that. If you're unsure, we're going to go and have a look at the help. Now I'm just going to grab the stylus. Now there is a little magnetic thing on there for this to go in. I'm just going to show you this part because we're going to go home, and we're going to go to our manual, and we're going to go to thread and threading. Just give me the right one. There is a piece in the manual about using your needle thread, and you've got this little stitch reference guide about your screen, about the home screen and what that means. You've also got things about the stitches and threading. So in this one, I just want to show you just quickly here that there's little elements here that show you exactly how to thread it, and you'll see them repeated here as well. So in this particular one, you've got this needle thread should be in the second one. Let me just move that across. Let me probably get my tweezers, and we'll come in to the section number 2. So they're separated. So if in doubt, look at this, okay? Just like me, because this is, like I said, this is the first time I've seen this machine at all. So I'm learning as you are. So now we're going to thread those needle threads, and we're going to use our needle threader once more. I'm going to, we'll leave that open for a minute. So here I am again, coming down, push through the eye of the needle, and just use the little hook, or you can use a pair of tweezers, it's up to you. Or just get your fingers in there. And then we're going to have all of our needle threads done. Finished. So that's really good. If you have trouble, on the end of this is a needle inserter, and you've got little triangle marks on the top. So this is a little, I was going to say claw, but you know what I mean. This is a little hook here to pull that thread after it's gone through the needle. So be mindful of these. These are what happens, you can see that there's a little piece of metal that comes out and pushes through the eye of the needle. Sometimes if you push too hard, they might bend. So just be mindful of that as you thread your machine. Okay, so nice and gentle. Close that up. So now we're ready to sew and rock and roll, as they say. So I'm going to bring my trim tray back over, pop it on, and that fits in really nicely. There's no sort of resistance there. It's just really nice the way it just sort of sits. Don't need my tweezers, so I'm going to pop them back in here. I'm notorious for having things in my hand. So let's just get all of that out of the way. Now I've got a piece of fabric here. We're going to, I haven't got my knee lifter. It'll get in the way of the camera. So I'm just going to drop my foot with just normally, and I'm just going to sew. Now we're going to go into guided mode, and I do want a 4-thread basic overlock, and we'll give it a go and see what happens. Perfect. Now, if I did want to adjust the little loops along the edge, I've got my micro thread control here. I can either add more thread to the loop, or I could take some away. So that's what that does. So I might show you on the other side. I'm going to take a little bit away, so I'm going to go to the -1 and show you what that does. So this is my first one. You could see across the top that I had a couple of little loops there, and I've just adjusted that to -1, and it is sitting right on that edge. Really super nice. Nice and neat, but the machine is super quiet. And that's really, really amazing. So what happens when we want to change to a different stitch type? Well, you've got a couple of options. In overlocking, like a Bernina screen, it gives you your stitches into folders. So we've got overlocking stitches, cover stitches, and combination stitches in here. Now, I'll be bringing up the simulator so that you can see the screen a little bit better. But just for now, we're just going to run through a couple here on the machine. So if I wanted a 3-thread super stretchy stitch, then the machine's going to guide me because I'm in guided mode. So it tells me what to do. So it says, okay, you want that, you're going to lift your presser foot and you're going to scroll along and you're going to unthread the following thread pass, and that's the upper looper. Okay, so you're going to unthread that. So what you would do is snip your thread, and then you will pull them through so that now you've only got 3 threads in there and no upper looper. And then you're going to put C11, which we've already got on the machine, and you're going to adjust your presser foot pressure to 4, and that's the lever that sits up here on the top. So that's okay. Then it tells you where to put your needles. Now we've got them in left and right. So that's fine. And then, that's right, yes, we've done that. So we're going to activate the knife and it's up, so that's good. There is a slider here on the side that if you didn't want to use your knife, you could. It's down here, but we've got it activated. And the cutting width, we're going to adjust to 6, and that's down here in the bottom. Attach the knife cover insert. Now that's already attached on here. If you were cover stitching, you would have removed that and put the little sew table on. Activate the upper looper, which it is already. And there's a little video about that if you're not sure. Hook in the upper looper converter. So, excuse me. All right, so we've got this is the activated upper looper. We're going to convert that by putting that in there like so. Okay, and we'll watch a little video and it tells you how to do that. So it's flipping that over, and that's how we do it. Okay, so it's got to click in. So when it's finished, you click it out and turn it back. I'm just going to move that thread. Okay, so it's converted. And then we're going to set the rolled hem lever position to O, which for overlocking, which we're on, and adjust the micro thread control to 0. And we're there. And thread, we've threaded the left needle and the right needle and the lower looper. So that is all good. So it guides us the whole way through this process. Now, I've just got some super stretchy fabric here. I'm just going to pop this back on. And I'm just going to chop this piece in half. And we're going to sew that seam. All right, let's give it a shot and see what happens. So now we've got all that sorted. Machine set itself up. It knows that we haven't got any blue upper looper in. And we're just going to go nice and slow to start. Well, something went awry there because it's all over the shop. All right, let's see. So as you can see, not a very successful test of that. So let's go back to basics, and you can see something that happened at the top here. See this? This is not in the thread guide. And this is throwing out all my tension on my machine. So now that we've got that sorted out, let's see if we can try and do the other seam a little bit better. Well, wasn't it a difference that made to that particular seam? Because now look how super stretchy that is. So, and look how terrible that one was. And that wasn't the machine, that was a user error. So let's get rid of that. So you can see it's important to make sure that your machine is threaded properly, because otherwise you won't get the result that you need. And if you're doing stretch fabric, for example, if you're doing lots of lycra and things, you want a super stretchy overlock seam. That's the stretchiest one I've seen in a long time. Okay, so you know those great, the great comfy leggings and those kinds of things. We need super stretch. Well, that's super stretched, and that thread isn't going anywhere. It's just beautiful. So there you go. That's some of the fun threads we can do. But the nice thing is that, let me see if I can move up a little bit. The nice thing is that you're guided by the machine. So when you're looking at crazy stuff that goes wrong, just have a look at your thread path, because if it's not quite clicked in correctly, then it affects how this machine works. And it's like anything, if it's not quite threaded correctly, then you're going to have a whole heap of trouble. So go back, check your threading, check your settings, try it again, and get great results. Okay, so if you're fairly new to overlocking, or you always struggle with how you want to set your machine up, then the guided mode is going to be the one that you want to use. If you're a proficient dressmaker or someone who uses Overlocker a lot, you may not need that. You can use the expert mode in this machine. For me, I'll be using the guided mode. I need all the help I can get, as you saw in that little section there, because we don't want that funky result, right? And that wasn't the machine, that was me. So, and it's just a matter of making sure that you're threading correctly. So as we go through, we might do one of the cover stitches, and we'll show you how the cover, the lower looper works for the chain, and give that a bit of a run. I'll come back once we've got the machine set up for that.